Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with another flat shaker card. This one done slightly different than my previous video. So to start off with, I'm using Simon Says Stamps Repeating Rainbows background. This was part of their Rainbows release, which I'm actually hoping to do a release and review video soon, even though the release came out like a month ago. One thing at a time. Anyway, I have the stamp on my MISTI. I removed the foam insert from my MISTI because this is a red rubber on cling foam stamp. And I have some of Simon's smooth white cardstock that I used my anti-static powder tool on. And then I inked up the stamp with clear embossing ink. And I'm stamping this onto the background with that. And then I'm going to coat this with detail white embossing powder. So white on white. Technically very boring, but of course I'm going to do some ink blending. Another option with this, which would be really fun, is to do the heat embossing, because you guys know I like the raised edge, keeps everything contained, and then to use like markers or watercolors and like actually color the rainbows. That would look really cute too. But I wanted to do some ink blending because the color combo I used in my last video, I really loved it, and a lot of it I pulled out on a whim, and I was like, I like these colors together. I want to do more background, so this time I'll do Emboss Resist ink blending. So I melted all the embossing powder with my heat tool, tilting it back and forth in the light to make sure it's melted, because again, white on white, it's harder to see, but any areas that look like grainy, then you got to make sure to get them with your heat tool. So I'm working on my little Tonic magnetic mat. I'm genuinely really enjoying this thing. The magnets are really nice, and I do like that it has the foam back on it so it doesn't slide around. And I'm using the same colors as my previous cards. So I started with Simon's Clementine ink. Again, that's just force of habit. I always, when I'm doing anything rainbow, to start with like the yellow color. It gives me sort of a visual of where all the other colors are going to go, plus it's the lightest color. So, use Clementine, and then I blended watermelon, and then green apple, and then I'll do SCUBA and Hot Mama. And as always, my camera makes my blending look like crap. I don't know why. I'm not concerned about it at all, because, yeah, in real life, like, as this ink dries, it smooths out even more. And it looks great, but it's just funny when I go back and start editing videos and I'm like, why does it look so horrible? It doesn't actually look like that at all, but my camera doesn't like me, so whatever. So I used just one of my cloths to wipe over the embossed areas just to pick up any excess ink that might have been sitting on that and to make it like pop a little bit more. And then I trimmed this down to A2 size. This was originally a little bit bigger, just in case. And now I'm trimming it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so this is a full A2 size panel. And you can do a couple different ways to make this an edge-to-edge, like flat shaker card. My last video I showed how I was just using like recycled packaging. This time I'm using these Tonic shaker pockets, and these were inspired by Ilda Diaz and Studio Katia. And Tonic produced them, and I will link to Ilda's blog post because I saw that it was like at the beginning of the month and love it. Her cards are fabulous, like totally fabulous. Highly recommend her as well. If you guys don't follow her, she makes beautiful cards. And yeah, she's been doing these like flat shaker cards for a long time now. So she had like approached Tonic about making these pages, and they did. And they're really great because they have the adhesive on them. You can see that's all I had to do is I just laid my panel face down on it, peeled off the backing, and like you got that wide adhesive strip. Simple, super simple. These ones are A2 size. They have other sizes. They have a slimline size, a 5x7 and a 6x6, I think. I'll link to them. You can check them out. So I'm also keeping the packaging that they're encased in on the inside of the package because you can use that for more shaker cards, because why not? So these are great. They're not super thick either. They're thicker than the packaging I used on the last video, but they're not super thick, if that makes sense. Like, they're sturdy and super adhesive. So that's all I did. I just put the panel down, removed the 3 sides, kept the 4th side open, filled it with some bling. I went with Studio Katia's Rainbow Dots glitter this time. It's like chunky glitter, and some more like iridescent chunky glitter because I love it. Again, huge fan of Studio Katia. Simon Says Stamp carries that line, and I have been a fan for a long time. Studio Katia is actually based in Canada. She's fabulous. I love her products. I have all her bling and stamps and dies, and I could rave about it. Anyway, love her stuff. And these pockets are perfect for using all of this like chunky glitter that I've been hoarding now for however long. So after I had created my shaker pocket, I die cut, like I used one of my ink pads. I used the SCUBA ink pad and just applied it directly to some white cardstock, let it dry, and then I die cut it with the outline of the You Are Enough wafer die set. And then the words I die cut from white cardstock. And I love that they're all connected, so it's one piece, so I didn't have to sit and like, you know, fit everything together. I just had to die cut it, stick some glue on it, and adhere it down. And then on another scrap of cardstock, I used the Hot Mama ink and applied that directly from the ink pad to the cardstock. So I got it this pretty purple shade. I need to do this more often because I don't think I have any cardstock this color. So this is a good way, like if you don't have a lot of colors of cardstock, you can just use your ink pads and apply them directly to the paper. If you're doing something that's like where I'm heat embossing, I made sure the ink was fully dry. And I had tested it out, like I'd poured the embossing powder over it to make sure that it wasn't going to cling to anything. And then anti-static powder tool. And I inked up a little stamp. This was from the Simon Says Stamp. Rainbow is my favorite color. This is a set that came in the June 2021 card kit. I'll have a link to the set individually. But I stamped that little sentiment onto that piece of cardstock and white heat embossed it. And then I'm just trimming that down with my paper trimmer. And then once that's trimmed with that, I'm going to use my scissors and create a little notched like flag ends on the bottom of it. And I've shown this in a ton of videos over the years. But you just use your scissors and you just cut right down the center. And then you meet each corner with that cut. Really simple, quick and easy. And it just gives it, you know, that little extra something. So meet that with the center of the cut. Flip around, do it with the same piece. They're the same thing on the other side, and it's done. So once I've got that cut down, I'm going to adhere that directly to the die cut sentiment. And then once those are adhered together, I'm actually just going to use some little thin 3D foam squares to adhere these to that shaker pocket. You could use thicker ones, but the whole point with this one, I wanted to make this as flat as possible. Obviously, it's a flat shaker card. I didn't want to add any extra dimension, but if you do want like the sentiments popped up, you could use like regular foam squares, foam tape, etc. Die cut more pieces of cardstock, glue those behind it. And like I mentioned in my last video, when you're adhering to acetate, this is where you do want either foam squares or foam tape or a strong liquid adhesive. Because if you don't use it, something that's, you know, going to really adhere well to plastic, it's just going to fall off. So I use the little foam squares. So they don't really add a whole lot of dimension, but they adhere really well. So the sentiment isn't going anywhere. So I pop the sentiment onto my panel. And then I've got my card base, which is going to be an A2 top folding card. And I use some Post-it tape to mask off right at the score line. And I'm going to put this back into my MISTI. I've left the stamp in place. And just like my last video, I'm going to use the ink pads to create a rainbow of colors, which just works perfectly with a rainbow background stamp. And it's hard to see when I'm filming like this, but I showed it in my last video. I hold my ink pad like on an angle. So I'm only using like the edge of the ink pad to ink up. And again, I start with my lightest color because that's the one most likely, like that would pick up the other colors. I don't worry about it though, if the edge of the ink pad, you know, picking up a little bit of ink from the other colors, it's not going to hurt it. I've never had a problem with it. But I started with the yellow, so the clementine, and then I added the watermelon, and then I'll go to green apple, scuba, hot mama, using that edge and just working my way, you know, all over the stamp to get all of these colors onto the stamp. I'm not worried about it being perfect. Just eyeballing it. An image like this actually wasn't too hard to get the colors pretty straight, but I wasn't like intentionally trying to make it like perfect. I just wanted all the colors because it's just fun. So after I've inked it up, I'm going to stamp that onto the inside of the card. I could leave it here just with the colors, because it's pretty and it's fun and it just ties it all together. But I wanted to use another sentiment from that Rainbow is My Favorite Color set. So I've put the foam insert back in my MISTI, because now I'm using a clear stamp, so it's behind the scratch paper. And I've inked up the sentiment with Simon's Intense Black ink, and I'm going to do this twice just to make sure the sentiment's really crisp and stands out from that like colorful background. And then I'm going to just fold my card shut, reinforce that with my Teflon bone folder. And then to adhere the shaker panel to the card, I'm just going to use score tape. Just a good strong adhesive. Although again, you could just use some liquid adhesive, just avoid the edges. With one like this versus the one I did last time with the packaging, like I said, these panels have like those thick, wide adhesive strips. Like it ain't going anywhere, literally. But I just use score tape. And then because I can't help myself, I did add a little bit of liquid glue. That totally unnecessary, but have it. Anyway, adhered that to my card base. So now it's a flat, full coverage, edge to edge shaker card. Seriously, like I said it in my last video, these are so fun to make. There is going to be more coming from me, because I did order like the other sizes of the shaker pockets, all the packaging I can use. These are so fun. I don't have to fiddle, you know, and build up extra dimension. They're so fun. I love it. So, as always, I will have links below the video to my blog post. I will link to all the supplies used. You can check that out in the description box below the video if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.